How's it going, everyone? Brandon Palaniuk here, and I'm going to give you a quick breakdown on bait casting reels. So what makes it a bait caster is really the design of the reel. So a spinning reel is going to have your handle on the side, but the spinning reel is designed to be below the rod. So if I pick up a spinning reel right here, this is a spinning reel. This is your bait caster. It is meant to be on top of the rod. Your spinning reel is below the rod. So the big thing is that with a bait caster, we have to actually control the spool with our thumb. So when you push this button down, that opens that spool up so the line is able to move freely, and you want to control that with your thumb. If you don't, that line is going to create what we call a backlash or a bird's nest. It's going to want to blow up and it's going to tangle. So don't be intimidated by that. There's ways that we control that so that you can learn. Now, you are going to get some backlashes at first, but the way that I like to explain this to people, or when you're starting out, is you really have two controls. You've got your brake control adjustment on this side, which is going to be opposite of your handle. And then you also have this control knob here. Now, one thing that Daiwa does really well on a lot of kind of their mid-line or mid-price point reels, like the Tatula lineup, whether it's a Tula Elite or a Tatula Elite PF like this, they have what they call a zero adjuster brake system. And so this knob is actually built at the factory to the perfect specs where you really don't need to touch this, and you just do all of your controlling with the brakes. So that makes it a lot easier on you if you've never used a bait caster. That's something that I would look for. And then you can see this goes from 0 to 20. And this little dot right here is going to be our indicator for where our brake adjustment is. Now you can see here I've got it on about 13. Now I will change this depending on the size of my lure. So the lighter the lure, a lot of times the lighter you want to go on your brakes so that it will allow you to get the most distance. And then the heavier lures, you will go up on that. And that can change with techniques and throughout the day. But what I recommend doing is starting with that all the way up. Start it up on 20. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to make a cast without this wanting to blow up, and it's going to give you more time kind of learning how to control that. So we're going to push this button and we're going to keep our thumb on here. You want to have, I would say, I'll just show you. You want about that much line out when you go to make your cast. And the easiest thing to do is just start with a nice sidearm roll cast. And the easiest thing to do is I'll take and I'll grab the butt of the rod, and I'll hold that in my opposite hand. Thumb is going to press down on that. I'll control the rod with the trigger grip. I'll split that with my fingers, so I've got good control of the rod. And then you're just going to make a sweeping motion backwards, and as that rod starts to load up, you'll feel it load, and then you're going to release. Now that's what's going to take the most practice, right? Is understanding when to release and how much power you put behind that. So a nice, even, steady backswing. And as that rod starts to load up backwards, we're going to push forward with both of our hands, and we're going to release. Now, if say you make a cast, and I want to hit that tree, and I cast, and it goes way to the left of that tree, your release is too late, right? Because we're sweeping this way, you release too late, and it's causing your bait to sweep to the left, and the opposite is true. If you release and it goes too far to the right, you released too early. Then the next step is controlling that spool so that you have a nice soft entry and it doesn't create a great big splash. That's going to help you get more bites. The fish aren't going to detect your bait. It's going to be a lot more natural in your presentation. Now, when you're scrolling through, right, you get on MidwayUSA.com, you're looking at all the different reels, that can be a daunting task. So to break down kind of what I look for is a lot of times manufacturers now, they build reels for specific purposes. So for example, this is a Daiwa Tatula Elite PF. That stands for pitch and flip. So this reel is actually designed for underhand pitching and flipping techniques. Those are generally used with heavier line, shorter distance presentations, and so they put features in that like bigger handles, right? So it's got a 100mm handle and bigger knobs so that we have more power. The other thing you want to look for is your gear ratio. So right here we've got 8.1 to 1. Now that can be as high as 10.1 to 1, and that can be also as low as a 5 to 1. What that means is, for example, on an 8 to 1, this spool is going to turn 8 times for every 1 full revolution of this handle. So the faster that number, right, the faster the first number, the more line you're going to pick up as you retrieve your bait. The slower, the less line you're going to pick up. So in situations where I want to make a lot of casts, real short casts, pitching and flipping, what this reel was designed for, that faster gear ratio helps you waste less time when you're reeling that bait back to the boat to make another presentation. Now there's some give and take with that. The higher the gear ratio, you start to lose power, and that's why they go to the bigger knobs, the bigger handles, to offset that power loss. So if you go to a lower gear ratio, you're not going to be able to pick up as much slack to set the hook on those fish or make more presentations, but you're going to gain power. So there's a balance there. As a rule of thumb, my go-to is a 7.1 to 1. That's what I use in most situations. For example, if I'm throwing a frog, I'm throwing a swim jig, you know, if I'm offshore fishing football jigs and things like that, a lot of times I will go with a slower reel. So for example, pick this one up. This is a Daiwa Tatula Elite. So same lineup, but it's not the PF version. You can see it's got a 90mm handle, so it's a little bit shorter, and it has smaller, flatter knobs, which is more versatile for a lot more techniques. So I can frog with this reel. I can throw those offshore jigs, small swim baits. You can throw jerk baits. If I was gonna pick one reel to start out with, it would probably be this Tatula Elite or the Tatula Elite SV. And those would be my go-tos to start off with. Super easy. It's got that zero adjuster brake system, and you can just control and start at 20. And then as you get a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable with your thumb control, start to back that off. The less brakes you can use, the more distance you're gonna have and the better control you're gonna have using your thumb. So hopefully that helps you break down bait casting reels and, you know, different ways to select those and different techniques to use them with.